Week 6 was fairly tame in Survivor Pools. We've got the Week 7 analysis coming up. I am Statsational, for those who don't know me. I am a former FX trader on Wall Street, bringing all of that analysis into my professional sports betting. I'm a professional DFS player as well, and co-founder of the Sharp app, where we bring you tools, models, and much more that are going to help you become a profitable sports bettor. But on this show, as you guys know, we talk Survivor Pools. We're helping you get to the finish line, and we're going to get all to it next on Scratching and Surviving. All right, guys, Week 6 was fairly tame. Only 5 people out in Survivor last week in Circa, I should say, in the Circa pool. 216 remain. Not what we've become accustomed to. We started with over 14,000 in that pool, and each week seems like the top team picked gets knocked out. Not the case, although it was close last week with Philly. Philly almost losing to Cleveland. That game was tighter than maybe some had expected. Almost 50% of pool participants at Circa had Philly, so it would have really shaken things up quite a bit more than the pool has already been shaken up over at Circa. But I know I've got a lot of you still in it that watch this video. You guys comment down below. You leave, first of all, the comments last week. I would just want to thank you guys and comments both on YouTube and in our Discord and on our TikTok channel. You guys just reaching out. You knew, I mentioned last week, I'm obviously back in the home office. As you could tell, I was at an Airbnb in Jacksonville, kind of escaping and evacuating Hurricane Milton last week, and I just want to thank you guys for the best wishes. All is well by me. I did have to kind of swim home a little bit on Saturday. The water, I went in up to my knees on my block or down my street. The water kept rising from a river that runs just maybe 50 yards away from my house, and the water, I stayed on some high ground, was up to my knees. If I went in the middle of the street, it was probably maybe about 4 foot deep. And I really didn't want to be wrestling the gators to try to get into the house. I could see that the house was okay, and I knew by Sunday the water was going to start to recede, which it has, and it's fully down by now. But I really want to just appreciate and thank you guys for all the best wishes. You do these shows, and you kind of talk out into the ether. You don't know who's really watching, but you make friends, and albeit maybe virtual friends, although I've met a lot of people in our Discord, some of our subscribers in person, and it's just a really nice thing to be able to kind of sit home by yourself. You do these videos, and you make these relationships around the world. I mean, it sounds odd. Yeah, we know how the internet works. I get it, but just a nice thing to have people caring and reaching out and wishing me well. So that was really nice to hear, and I appreciate it. So I love giving you guys this content. I love helping you guys try to win the Survivor. It's not easy. I'm out of my Survivor in Circa, so I'm really pulling for all of you who are still in Circa and are following me. So, again, just a big thanks to you guys. We're going to dive into this week and talk about what we've got, what we're looking at. It's an interesting week. It's very top-heavy, and I've got Survivor Grid open already, so we'll just dive into Survivor Grid and see what we've got. So the number one team of the week is Buffalo as far as win percentage goes. So Survivor Grid's got them at 78%. I think I have them slightly higher than that in my spreadsheet, and we'll go over that in a second. But you're seeing about a 9-point favorite for Buffalo at home against Tennessee, and about 32% of the entries, at least according to Survivor Grid right now, are on Buffalo. Now you look, Buffalo, we know, or at least we think, one of the better teams in the league, and should have a lot of future value. Now, you can't see it, it's just off the screen here, but they've got it future value of 2 on Survivor Grid, and that's a star rating system up to 5. You'll see in my spreadsheet what my spreadsheet has, but my spreadsheet will rank it based on if you are, like this week, they're going to get a ranking of 1 Buffalo because they have the best win percentage of all the teams out there. And then I do that for each and every week into the future, so the lower the number, the better. Buffalo, do they have much of a future value here? Tennessee, obviously, this is going to be their best shot to take them this week. If you have not taken them already, some people have. Miami in Week 9 looks like the next best option, but Tua may be back by then. We'll see. You look at Week 9, you've got Baltimore. If you have not taken them, people have taken them already against Denver, which, quite frankly, Not the easiest of matchups, although Denver, I do think, will have a tough time scoring with them, but we're not going to get into that now. Denver right now projected to be a 9.5-point favorite. Again, I don't know if it's going to be that high when we get to week 9. We shall see. Cincinnati at home against Vegas, 8-point favorite, probably at a minimum a 7-point favorite in that game if things in the next couple of weeks kind of stay on the path that they have been going. Cincinnati has not looked great, but let's assume Cincinnati wins this week. Even if they lose their game to Philly, if Vegas doesn't do anything super impressive, they look like they're kind of dismantling that team. That should be one of the second options that week. So we've got teams. Kansas City is going to be a team almost every week with the potential to have. So you've got some teams outside of Buffalo that you could take in week 9. And really, when we look at Buffalo after that, I mean, at Seattle, you're not going to like it. At Indianapolis, do we have other options that week? Kansas City home for Denver. Like I said, Kansas City just about every week. But, the Bears home for New England. If you haven't taken the Bears yet, that looks like a better option than Buffalo does at Indianapolis. Baltimore, again, of course, Baltimore is going to pop up a lot. The Chargers home for Tennessee could be one that you like. So there are going to be some other options. It's not like we're forced into taking Buffalo at any other point until you get to maybe week 16. They have their home against New England. And you can see that just a little bit on the screen here. But they're home against New England in week 16. So that would be the other option. So if you're in a large pool, I can understand maybe looking elsewhere off of Buffalo. If you're in a small pool, as I always say, we want to just kind of take the favorites, take the biggest favorite team typically, and then take our chances. We've seen often, and I get the comments from you guys down below asking questions on who you like in your pool, who I like in your pool. And, of course, it's all based on your setup, how many people are left, who you could take, who your opponents can take. But so often we find out that there's 3 or 4 people left in a pool, and they go and take the wackiest of picks. It happened last week. Again, I'm trying to remember now. My brain is mush. But someone took a team that they never should have taken, like one of the 3-point favorites of the week when there were so many other options in a pool that was heads up. I believe it was down to 2 people. And the person who let me know which pool that was, and we were going back and forth on who they should take, messaged me before the game started on who that other team was, and I'm forgetting who it was. But they took a 3-point favorite that wound up winning. But we see it week in, week out. People will try and get cute, and your heads up. If you're heads up, you are always taking the best team, unless the following week is a week in which we don't have to we may want that team, and maybe the second best team this week is better than the second best team next week, right? Or at least 2 or 3 weeks out. But for the most part, let someone else take a team. We've got almost an 80% chance here with Buffalo to win their game. There's no reason for us to move to a Washington or a Cincinnati. Let your opponent move off of that team. Now, when we get more people in the pool, if you got 5 people in the pool, then it opens it up to where if 4 people have Buffalo, of course, we want to take Washington, right? So you should just always have that thought in your mind. The more people on a team, the more apt we are to maybe look the other way. And, of course, you want to have as many weeks, even if you're the underdog for it to happen, you want to have as many weeks possible for you to have a chance to win the pool. Because if you are continually not in a position to win, that is, let's say there's 5 people left in the pool, and you have Buffalo. 2 people take Buffalo. 3 people take Washington. You're one of the people on Washington. Yes, you can advance. You can build your equity, but you still can't win the pool this week, right? So we'd much rather be in situations where we can actually win the pool. So we will be apt to take a lesser team if we know our opponents are all going to be on the same side. And that's what the threshold on my spreadsheet talks about. We'll get into that in a second. Let's go over Washington here as the second choice. 75% chance that they win their game. They're playing Carolina. Obviously, Carolina's been pretty bad. Washington has looked strong. We look to Washington again. Future value. Chicago game at home. Don't really love it. At the Giants, we don't love. Pittsburgh, no. Philly, at Philly. Dallas, who knows? In Week 12, this could be a different story here, the way Dallas has looked. Washington may be a team that you'd want to take in Week 12. Again, we talk about Kansas City almost each and every week. If you have not taken Houston, they're going to be a good play at home against Tennessee. Miami, who knows, against New England. If it's Tua back, then yes, Miami will probably be a strong play here. Most people have not taken Miami. Baltimore is always going to be a good play. Detroit at Indianapolis, I don't know. So there's going to be other options here, but you never know. Washington, right now, they're projecting Dallas as a favorite, but Washington at home is clearly going to be a favorite. If the game was this week, Washington would be a favorite against Dallas. So we see not a lot of future value. You're getting a ton of people taking Washington this week, 34%, for that reason and that purpose, right? But again, if you're in a heads-up situation, you're definitely taking Buffalo, no doubt about it, okay? Cincinnati, the third best chance. Actually, no. The third best chance is the Rams to win their game at 72.6%, and they're getting almost 11% of people taking them on Survivor Grid. They get Vegas. Vegas has looked terrible. The Rams may have cut back. We shall see. This is a choice that you're going to look at the Rams only in much larger pools. I think you're really sticking with Buffalo and Washington. One thing I didn't mention about Washington, the one advantage you do have with Washington in a small pool is they will play the later game. They've got a later game. Buffalo's playing at 1 o'clock. Washington's got the 4 o'clock game. I don't know if it's 4:25. It's probably the early 4 o'clock game, 4:05. But we should have an idea of the Buffalo finish before that game. So you do have the ability to perhaps be able to hedge with Washington. So I'd be more apt to take Washington the more people are in the pool. If it's heads up, I'm just going to take Buffalo, fire Buffalo away, hope my opponent takes any other team, and I will have the advantage there. As soon as it gets to 3, 4, 5 people left in the pool, Washington becomes a more interesting play because of that hedging possibility and because we may have the ability to be the only ones on Washington. Unlikely, you're going to have other people with Washington in your pool for sure, and more than likely someone, at least one person, depending on how many are left, have taken Buffalo. But the Rams will become more interesting in larger pools. I don't think they have any place in a smaller pool. I would not go near them. But as we get to a medium-sized pool here, we could start looking at the Rams. And again, very little future value on the Rams. They've got Vegas this week, Minnesota, Seattle, Miami. Again, we don't know the situation with Tua. At New England, Philly, New Orleans, just not a lot of options here. Buffalo, San Francisco, they're at the Jets. We just aren't going to take the Rams again. So because of the lack of future value, very little future value at all, the Rams become a very interesting choice in larger pools. The next best option, or the team that's been taking the next most here, is Cincinnati, 7.6%. They have about a 72% chance to win. They're at Cleveland, 6.5-point favorites. But you see, Cincinnati home for Vegas in Week 9. That should steer a bunch of people off. They're going to be one of the better options to take in Week 9 if you have not taken Cincinnati. Most people have not as of yet. And then you probably won't have a chance to take Cincinnati again until Week 16 with Cleveland, when they get Cleveland at home. So, I mean, I'd much rather take Cincinnati at home against Cleveland than on the road at Cleveland. And they're projecting Denver in Week 17 as a 7-point favorite, but right now Denver would be very close. Denver would not be a favorite in that game, but that would be probably closer to a 3 or 4 point line, I'm thinking, right about now. So we shall see. Then and then you have the Rams, or we talked about the Rams. We've got the Rams at 10.8%. Cincinnati has 7.6% taken, and then Jacksonville. Jacksonville is going to be an interesting choice in larger pools. They're on the neutral site. They're in London, 5.5-point spread. Got about a 68% chance to win. They are getting some attention because, again, Jacksonville just not a team you're going to want to take for the rest of the season. Right? Let's go into the spreadsheet, see what it looks like here. And you guys know how I do the spreadsheet. I come up with the win percentage based on a money line. This is the money line that I get from the Sharp app. And guys, if you have not downloaded the Sharp app yet, download it for free if you want to get the pro version. And we've got I think it's coming out Friday. We're launching it's a soft launch of version 2.0. It's going to have about 60 different sports books in it. We are updating the Proptimizer tool, which helps you pick prop bets in the market. We've got some amazing things planned for the future as well, and that's a very near future within the next few weeks. An EV tool for the Pro Plus subscribers that's going to spot the positive expected value plays based on our models and figure that out for you really quickly. So it's going to really aid in your handicapping. It's going to get you on some of the smarter plays that you should be betting in the prop markets, and everyone loves betting the props. So you're going to have that on top of course, the AI model that we have in there for spreads and totals. It's chock full. I urge you guys to download it. And if you use the code Survivor35 and you want to become a Pro Plus subscriber or Pro Lite. I think it'll work on both, but definitely for Pro Plus subscribers, you get 35% off the Pro Plus subscription if you use code Survivor35. So check that out. But when we look at the spreadsheet, so you've got Buffalo here as the largest favorite, as we talked about, 80.3%. After I take an average inside the Sharp app, I take the midpoint basically between the favorite money line and the dogs money line, and you get minus 408 here for Buffalo, which translates to about 80.3%. Now I'm weighting this at 0. This is going to give us the highest probability teams to win. And of course, this is what we want to look at in small pools. I went over before why we may want to take Washington in a smaller pool because we have that ability to hedge. I like to hedge. I've told you guys on the spread because I'm looking to catch a middle and win my game if I had Washington win the game and have them not win by more than a touchdown, and therefore win my bet as well. You've got to be careful when hedging. If we hedge too early when there's too many people left in the pool, we're going to have to continually keep on hedging, not only to hedge to try to make money, but to try to get our money back if we keep advancing in the pool if we lost our hedge bets, right? So you could get yourself in a situation where the hedge betting starts to increase exponentially, and you're getting yourself in a position where we're at a point where we're risking more than the pool's even worth. So you got to be really careful when you start. You want to wait as long as possible before you start hedging. But if you're down to just a few people left in your pool, definitely consider the hedges and at least get your money back. We want to try to become plus EV over time. Winning one individual year in a survivor pool, very, very difficult. You are most likely going to be playing in these year after year after year. Hedging is going to help increase your expected value, right? So just in the comments down below, I could help you guys out with what I think you should be doing as far as hedging, if you should be hedging at all at the point you are at in your pool. So we move it, from the 0%, which is always pretty basic. It's going to just give us the teams that are most likely to win. We drop this down to or up to 50%. You see it puts the Rams now as the second choice because of the limited future value. But I tell you, when we looked at Survivor Grid, Buffalo doesn't have all that much future value either, right? So I get it. Like, I'd feel better having Buffalo in my pocket if I could get through this week without using Buffalo because you just never know where things are going to, where the league's going to move, who's going to get hurt and whatnot. Buffalo, obviously a better team here than the Rams. So if I could keep Buffalo in my back pocket, I would feel better at some future date. If I was forced to take one of these two teams, the Rams, unlikely I would even be considering them at any of these future dates. But I don't know if that's enough of a reason to get onto the Rams. Now, you are getting a lot of leverage by taking the Rams. And part of this leverage, the threshold column that I have here kind of shows a little bit of, we could call it leverage as well. But the threshold column, it doesn't change with future value. And I should have gone over this before, but Buffalo, 73.5%. That's based on the 32% pick rate. Now, if they're being picked at a higher percentage, this threshold number goes down, right? So if you know that 80% of your pool is going to take Buffalo, what this is telling you is take anyone other than Buffalo. So if there's 5 people in your pool and you know all 4 are going to take Buffalo, this just tells you take anyone else. And of course, by anyone else, you're going to take the best team you possibly can, which would be Washington, right? If this number goes down, so if there's 5 people in your pool and only one of them are we expecting to take Buffalo, then in that instance, we'd probably want to take Buffalo as well. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. That would change the threshold to 76.5%. But at 73.5%, based on about 1/3 of your pool taking Buffalo. So if you're in a pool of 10 people and you think about 3 people are going to take Buffalo, then you really can only fade Buffalo with maybe the Rams or Washington for sure, right? We don't want to get take too risky a pick here in order to fade looking for some kind of leverage because there's just not enough leverage there, right? So hopefully that makes some sense. Washington, of course, a much lower because Washington's being picked at a higher percentage. Their threshold is about 68%. They're being taken 34% of pools, and their win percentage is not nearly as high. So taking Washington in a smaller pool, if you knew about 1/3 of your pool was taking Washington, you'd be much more apt to fade that pick than you would Buffalo, right? So if you knew going in 1/3 of you had 10 people in your pool, you're going to have 3 Washingtons, 3 Buffaloes. I'd much rather be on the Buffalo side than be on the Washington side, right? And that I don't know if I'd even, in that instance, if I'd want to move to the Rams even then, right? So this is really going to help you when it's more of a situation where you can be the only one kind of getting on that other team, or very few people in your pool left getting on that other team. But as it says here, this is just going to give you a good idea that Washington would be a better fade in a smaller pool. You're going to get a lot of people on Washington. Now, unless you could be the only one on them in a heads-up situation, that may be the case. But again, heads up, I'm going to want to take the best possible team. Let someone else take Washington. Again, the advantage that you have with Washington is you can hedge with them. So when we move it to 50%, the Rams become possibly a play. And then you'll see when I get this to 100%, it doesn't really change much because, again, there's so many teams here that are high favorites with very little future value. It doesn't change much. The one team we could talk about is Jacksonville. I would only consider Jacksonville in a very large pool. I would actually consider them over Cincinnati. I think you may have some more opportunities to take Cincinnati in the future. But in a very large pool, Jacksonville is intriguing. I don't know if they're worth maybe getting off one of these big favorites, but if you still have 1,000 people, 500 people, 1,000 people in your pool, serious consideration for Jacksonville, I think, is in order because, as we've seen, you could get a ton of upsets. It's happened every single week except for last week. If Washington were to lose, if Buffalo were to lose, and you could get by on a Jacksonville, of course, you're going to increase your equity tremendously in your pool. But I think this is strictly a play for pools that have a lot of people left. Those are pools that you expect to go all the way to week 18. And pools also that you don't necessarily expect to win, right? So you have to look at it from the perspective of the less chance I have to win the pool, the more risk I'm going to take, and also the more weeks I expect to need to be in this pool, the better teams I need to save. So you have to be strategic in the way you're going to pick it. The only way you'll ever get with a chance to win in a pool so large is basically the way the first few weeks have gone this season. You have the circa pool, 14,000 plus entries in that pool. The only way you would have survived to the point of 216 left, which is still a long shot to win that pool, the only way you would have survived is by taking some picks against the grain. So we look at this week. I think it's just an unusual week that we have so many teams with very little future value who are the favorites this week, that there's not as much of an advantage maybe in getting a little different with your picks unless you're in a large pool. So again, to recap, in a smaller pool, I think Buffalo and Washington are going to be your two plays. If you're heads up, you're for sure taking Buffalo. If you take Washington in a pool that has just very few people left, you can consider a hedge bet because they have the later game, and you may get a Buffalo loss in that game, which will be able to increase the hedge bet that you can make on Washington, as it will certainly eliminate some people in your pool, increasing your equity before that game even starts. So that is one thing to consider. If you're looking at one of these other teams, I would only do so in extremely large pools. All right, guys, that is going to be it for me this week. Of course, leave your comments down below. I'm happy to answer all of them for you. And again, really appreciate all the love and best wishes from you guys. All is well here for me in the Tampa area. And just appreciate all you guys very much. So thank you. Hope to see you back next week surviving. And let's get all the way to the finish line with this.